Welcome to This Explainer. I was recently diving back into Brian Tracy's work, and it really struck me. If you're tuning in today, there's a solid chance that you, or maybe someone you care about, is currently navigating a pretty tough spot. Life absolutely loves throwing curveballs when we least expect them, doesn't it? But here's the absolute truth. Overcoming adversity, while definitely not a walk in the park, is entirely possible. In fact, you can't just survive it, you can actually thrive because of it. So today, we're going to break down Tracy's incredibly practical 4-step strategy for managing those hard times. We're talking defining the problem, figuring out the worst outcome, accepting it, and then proactively fixing it. We're going to approach this with total determination. We are swapping out the chaos for real actionable structure.
Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to ask yourself a very direct question. When the chips are really down, what are you actually made of? Seriously, think about it. It's so easy to be positive when the sun is shining and everything is going your way, right? But your true character, what's literally at the core of who you are, that only comes out when adversity hits you completely out of nowhere, like a Mack truck pulling out of a blind alley, or, let's be real, that seemingly innocent "we need to talk" text. Yikes. Since our outward behaviors are the true indicators of our inner selves, we really only learn who we are when things go totally wrong.
So, here is our roadmap out of that emotional chaos today. We'll kick things off with the reality of adversity, unpack the actual anatomy of panic, dive deep into that 4-step method I mentioned, talk about the power of asking the right questions, and wrap up with the concept of "this too shall pass." All right, let's get right into it.
Section 1, the reality of adversity, or as I like to call it, the endless parade of problems.
Here's the raw truth. Adversity never actually goes away. Let's make this crystal clear right out of the gate. Life is just a continuous succession of problems. No sooner do you finally get a handle on one messy situation than bam, you're hit with another. And yeah, it can feel completely exhausting, but here's the catch. You actually need these struggles. You literally couldn't become the capable person you are right now without battling adversity. There's this huge misconception out there that becoming successful means you just won't have problems anymore. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Success doesn't eliminate your problems, it just upgrades them. You essentially graduate from small problems with limited consequences to huge problems with enormous consequences. No matter how smart or careful you are, you're always going to face struggles. Honestly, understanding that is kind of liberating. It means you aren't doing anything wrong when life gets hard, you're just playing the game at a higher level.
Section 2, the anatomy of panic. Let's look at why we lose our cool. So, why exactly do we lose our minds when an obstacle pops up? The crucial point here boils down to one word: options. In life, you are really only as free as your well-developed alternatives. Think about it. If a problem rears its head and you've got a solid backup plan, you stay flexible. No big deal. But if you haven't developed any alternatives, a sudden loss is going to instantly trigger major anxiety and panic. Panic, at its core, is just your brain's psychological reaction to feeling like you have absolutely zero options left.
To fight off that panic, your starting point for dealing with any difficulty is to literally force yourself to physically and mentally relax. You've got to clear the mental fog to regain control over your emotions. I want you to mentally take a massive step back. View the problem with total detachment, almost as if it were happening to someone else entirely. It sounds a bit wild, I know, but pretend you're just a bystander, munching on some popcorn while watching the drama unfold on screen. Doing this transforms a totally subjective, terrifying panic into a calm, objective observation. And that's exactly when you start spotting the real opportunities.
Section 3, the 4-step method. This is where we bring in the methodical solutions. Once you've caught your breath, we shift gears into problem-solving mode. But before we get to the actual steps, I want to emphasize just how incredibly proven this framework really is. As Brian Tracy points out, Dale Carnegie actually wrote about this specific method over 50 years ago. So we're not talking about some fleeting internet fad or a cheap motivational trick. This is a historically credible, immensely powerful mental tool, purpose-built for tackling deep worries and heavy, heavy problems.
And this brilliantly illustrates the 10,000-foot view of that framework. It's 4 sequential steps. Number 1, define the problem. Number 2, determine the worst possible outcome. Number 3, accept that outcome. And number 4, proactively improve the situation. Together, these form a bulletproof mechanism for conquering life's hurdles. So let's break down exactly how you can apply every single one of these steps right now in your own life.
Step 1, define the problem clearly. What exactly is keeping you up at night? If you're feeling totally overwhelmed, it's usually because a bunch of different problems have sort of morphed together into one giant, terrifying shadow monster in your mind.
you have got to untangle them. Grab a piece of paper and write out the exact, precise definition of what is bothering you. Force it down into a single issue. If there really are multiple issues, write them out as completely distinct, separate points. Just the act of getting it out of your head and onto a physical page almost instantly drains its power. It's like taking the monster out of the dark closet and tossing it under a glaring desk lamp. It's not so scary once you can clearly see it.
Now that it's defined, we jump to step 2, determine the worst possible outcome. And I'm really challenging you here. You need to be brutally, unflinchingly honest with yourself. Please, do not sugarcoat this. Ask yourself, if the wheels completely fall off and everything falls apart, what is the absolute worst thing that could happen? Is it losing a chunk of money, a key relationship, a major client? You have to face the absolute darkest outcome head on. Look the monster right in the eye.
All right, now we hit the real turning point. Step 3. Resolve to accept that worst outcome. Once you've pinpointed the most disastrous thing that could happen, put yourself through the mental exercise of accepting that it is going to happen, no matter what you do. Now, there is a brilliant psychological trick at play here. When we face a crisis, almost all of our mental energy gets burned up just trying to resist that worst-case scenario. But the second you stop resisting and truly accept it, your anxiety drops like a stone, your mind clears up, your ability to actually deal with the mess dramatically, almost magically improves.
Which leads us perfectly into step 4. Expect and proactively improve the worst-case scenario. Think about it. You've already accepted the absolute worst, which means you have literally nothing left to fear. Now, you can throw every single ounce of your mental energy into the battle to minimize the damage. You've got to tell yourself to stop agonizing over what happened in the past or whose fault the whole mess was. Honestly, that's completely irrelevant right now. Instead, concentrate 100% on the future. Start fighting to rebuild and improve the situation from the ground up. Let's move to the next part and see how this builds, because this 4th step is really fueled by asking proactive questions. Things like, okay, what do I do right now? How can I minimize the fallout here? What is the absolute first step I can take today? Followed closely by, what's the 2nd step? And what's the 3rd? By rapid-firing these specific, forward-looking questions, you are literally forcing your brain out of a frozen state of panic and shifting it into a state of relentless forward momentum.
Section 4. Asking the right questions to stay objective.
Maintaining that level of cool, objective detachment we just talked about requires a habit of continuous, curious inquiry. Look, successful people don't magically coast through life without problems. They just respond to them better by actively engaging their creative problem-solving skills. And the key to unlocking those powers? It's asking questions. As long as you are asking questions, you are actively expanding your options. But more importantly, it forces your mind to stay cool. It totally prevents you from getting emotionally overwhelmed and inadvertently shutting down the logical centers of your brain.
Now, what's really interesting about this next point is the immense, often overlooked value in this one specific question: who else might have had this problem and what did they do about it? You know, so many problems blow up simply because we're working with bad information. So swallow your pride for a second. Never be afraid to admit that you're in a total bind or that you really dropped the ball. Go find someone you respect, admit you need a hand, and just ask for advice. I guarantee you will be blown away by the solutions you can uncover just by talking to someone who has already survived the exact same mess you're stuck in right now.
Section 5. This too shall pass. The ultimate triumph over difficulty.
When you're in the thick of adversity, this is arguably the most powerful, positive affirmation you can hold on to. This too shall pass. Whatever it is you're facing, no matter how ridiculously impossible or heavy it feels today, it will pass. You have to keep your thoughts laser-focused on where you are going, not staring in the rearview mirror at where you've been. Keep your eyes locked on your goals and, as cheesy as it sounds, keep your chin tilted upward toward the sunshine. Ultimately, your main job in life is just becoming an absolute expert at triumphing over these roadblocks.
I want to leave you with a final, empowering question to really chew on today. Will you resolve, right now, in advance, to meet every single difficulty head-on? Will you commit to never giving up until you absolutely overcome it? Listen, adversity is coming. That's just a non-negotiable fact of life. But now, you've got the 4-step method in your back pocket. You know how to define the problem, accept the worst, and proactively fight back. So use this structure. Keep asking those forward-facing questions. And above all, never forget what you're truly made of.